Have you ever asked yourself, who am I? Like, really? Am I my personality? Am I my career, my roles? Am I a lawyer, a teacher, a parent? Who or what am I? Science is telling us that we are energy. It's not only an interesting contemplation, it's an essential one because life is actually unfolding miraculously all the time. Hello there, and welcome to the Art of Awakening. I'm your host, Dr. Sue Morter. Have you ever asked yourself, who am I? Like, really? Am I my personality? Am I my career, my roles? Am I a lawyer, a teacher, a parent? Who or what am I? Who are we beyond our physical body and our expression in the world? It's not only an interesting contemplation, it's an essential one, as far as I'm concerned. We have to truly come to know the depth of our being, the truth of who we are. Because if we live a life that has never contemplated these things, we are skating across the surface of life, trying to make ends meet and try to make it work. And it is always a game of dodgeball or a game of chance, or as if we're throwing darts and trying to hit the center of a target that we've never really perfected our ability to do so. So there's a constant frustration, irritation, agitation. And we're here to get underneath that and to realize, you know what, life is not supposed to be hard. It's actually supposed to work in my favor, and it's actually supposed to have a flow to it. And there is supposed to be a deep and meaningful purpose to absolutely everything that I encounter. Believe that or not, it's the truth. And it is how we can begin to embrace life from an entirely different perspective if we allow it. So what is it that we actually are? Science is telling us that we are energy. And then science is now telling us that we are energy that is awake, that has consciousness to it. And then science is saying that actually everything is based in consciousness. This entire reality is based on conscious perception and how we are arranging photons, how we are arranging energy by how we focus our mind consciously and intentionally, and also subconsciously in a manner of unawareness by accepting norms and regular traditions and habits and ways of being that our entire culture has established. And by stepping into that as if it's true, we maintain its reality. We maintain its truth. We create the truth in that way in a felt and seen material world. So it's kind of mind-boggling when you start to think about how the applications of that might imply that you are creating your misery or that you are creating a generation of a new realm, or that you are truly responsible for the miracles that are happening in your life, or that you have some say in transformation and healing and generating the life that you would love to be living. All of it is what is up for discussion inside of our science and spirituality discussions in today's world. And the beautiful part about that is that it is you, and you possess all the power to do all of those things, even the ones that intimidate you a little bit, even the ones that you might have had a knee-jerk reaction to. And I said that thinking, I'm not in charge of the miracles. You don't make miracles, or this doesn't happen. And I want you to understand that life is actually unfolding miraculously all the time. And the degree to which you allow yourself to participate in that stream of consciousness determines your experience of them. So you create the conditions in which miracles can appear to your visual field, but they're always happening. And it's a matter of your awareness being dialed into one frequency or another, a frequency, a reality where things don't go so well, it's not so easy, or a frequency and reality that is authentically allowing a flow that is meant to be, that is the highest good unfolding to be happening in your neck of the woods, if you will. And so we're here to discuss that and play around with it so that we can start to utilize these concepts that science is showing us and allow them to speak to what ancient spirituality has been telling us for millennia, and to weave it together in a way that actually works right inside this system, looking out, living this life in these relationships and these circumstances that we are in, each of us. And the power there is immense. So who are you? Who are you? And what is the connection between this energy that is awake and our own physical bodies and our physical lives and the outcomes that we are experiencing? And I want you to understand that the common denominator is one thing. It's the stream that is you, the stream of consciousness that is you. You are a stream of energy. You are actually the universe. You are beyond that. You are the unified field of consciousness, of energy itself. And you are compressing yourself to come into the physical dimension. You're lowering your vibration by compressing and compressing and compressing yourself into the physical world. And we know this as a law of physics that states that every physical material thing that you look at, see, touch, sit on, walk with, experience is actually energy that is compressed into form. So how you compress the energies into the forms in your life is up to you. And how you overly compress those energies into contractions and shutdowns is also up to you. But we didn't know that that was happening when we developed the habit of doing that. We didn't know that we were in charge of so much of our reality when we were busy holding grudges and being angry and unforgiven and unresolved. We didn't realize that that was going to have a tremendous impact on our lives from here on out until we do realize it and kind of retrofit ourselves into a more accurate version of who we are, and then live a life that we like a little better than the one that we were living before. So the whole thing is a continuum, and all of it is you. You exist as pure light, pure consciousness, and you exist all the way down at the other end of the continuum in pure physical matter, but you still are energy. No matter where you are on that spectrum, no matter where you are on that continuum, all of it is you. And so when we start to realize, oh, I am the whole continuum, things begin to change. We begin to see that I'm not this separate self that's trying to make things work and make a flow happen in my life. It isn't that, and I'm not going to let it ever return to that state inside of me now that I'm onto it. Because inside of the Art of Awakening, we're in the conversation constantly about what it takes to awaken to yourself as the pure conscious energy being that you are. And so as this unified field is compressing itself, think of it as compressing into a funnel that compresses into a channel that descends all the way to the physical dimension. It then reflects back on itself and rises up again. And it rises as high as it can go, given the amount of circuitry that we have in place to maintain its momentum. But if we don't have the circuitry awakened and enlivened and in place to give rise to this essence, then it begins to fall and fountain around and disperse itself. And by the nature of our being here and how quantum science and bioenergetics work in the continuum, what happens is we take up that energy again and breathe it up through the body, and then it cycles and flows out and again, and it repeats and repeats and repeats. And our job is to build enough circuitry inside this system to allow this conscious rising of the soulful self to happen without delay, without distortion, without circumventing or sidestepping around all those issues in our lives that we don't like, that we want to skate around. Like, I don't want to talk to that person because every time I do, it's upsetting to me. So we step around it. I don't want to go into that conversation because it triggers me. And so I step around it. All the while, we're missing all the opportunities to build circuits to allow a more robust uprising of who we are so that we can ascend our whole vibration and move in a way that is more free and empowered and deliberate and operating as a creator instead of a survivor. And so this rising energy is what I refer to as the soulful self, this rising energy. So the descending energy would be like spirit descending to the earth. And then as it rises, we rise as the soulful self. And so the soul is constantly refining itself so that it has no buttons and that it has no things to avoid, and then it gets good at being present with everything and embodying under every kind of circumstance, no matter what, being present and stable and clear and here. And as it does so, it refines its own essence to be more like the spirit that is descending. So spirit descends and the soulful self rises, and it's all us. It's us. We are a spirit being, an energy being that has consciousness, that is choosing to become, choosing to incarnate into physical form. So we gather ourselves into a funnel, into a channel, and we descend and hit the earth, and we rise up in as this toric field system. And it's inside that physical system that we build a body. The body is built as the stabilizing of this energy over and over and over upon itself, like a centrifuge that is literally spinning down into stillness in the form of physicality, physical body. And so it's inside that physical body that we're creating a vehicle that we can move about in this physical world. It's pretty fascinating. And so we're here in that now. We're here in that physical realm now as a soulful self that has a layer of engagement on its surface. And that layer of engagement is the personality. The problem is we've forgotten that we are the soulful self, and we think we are the personality that's out there engaging and navigating and negotiating and bargaining to have an existence because it's splatted and dispersed and not integrated. And so in the Art of Awakening, it's all about really teaching people how to integrate in all sorts of ways, in all sorts of walks of life, and all different kinds of conversations, and all ways of coming to a deeper truth than we've than we've accumulated by living as the personality, by living as that engaging personality self in the outer layers of our being, at the superficial layer of life. So we're deepening our understanding as we learn to live as the soulful self. And so ancient spiritual traditions and scientific discoveries of today are converging. They're getting closer and closer to the same conversation, finally. And what is happening is we're inventing enough technology that we can evaluate what's actually here. It doesn't mean it's now true. It means we can now believe it because we can prove it, because we can see it. And that is the challenge of living as a left brain individual who needs the evidence before they feel safe. If we overemphasize our need for the stability of the science and the feedback, etc., we will always be behind the times in terms of really knowing the truth of who we are. Enter the stage, quantum science, which is telling us that we find what we're looking for. So it becomes more important to evaluate what we're looking for than it is evaluating what we find. If that is true, and quantum science is telling us beyond the shadow of a doubt that that is the case, that if we're looking to find something to be an obstacle, it's an obstacle. And if we're looking at the same thing as if it's an opportunity, it's an opportunity. If we're looking for something to validate some version of ourselves that is limited in some way, then the reality is the physical world has no choice but to reflect that back to us. And so we're here to learn how to flip it over and move into living this life from a perspective that allows us to remember that we are the creator, that we are creating this life is in terms of allowing this flow of the unified field to come through our bodies and into our lives. So people say, well, are you co-creating or are you creating? And the answer is yes, all the time. You're dabbling from one side of that equation to the other. We're either operating as a pure creative presence where we're steering and guiding this unified field that is funneling and channeling itself and rolling out through us into our life, or we're paying attention to what we've already created and adjusting and adapting to how we open in our system and allow more of this truth to pour through. And so is it creator or co-creator? And the answer is yes. Ultimately, there's only one of us here. And so it is an effort of teaching myself to open my system enough to allow the divine to pour through me, to allow the universe to pour through me, to allow the continuum of energies that is the full spectrum that we are to pour through me without me interrupting it, without me distorting it into some drama, into some trauma. And so what happens is when we begin to align science and spirituality, our right brain and left brain get to know each other a little better. They both get to be satisfied at the same time. We both get to find our way when we're dealing with quantum science, meaning something that's reproducible and logically giving us outcomes that we can prove over and over again, and also recognizing that the observer or the scientist, the experimenter, has an influence on the outcome of the experiment based upon what they're looking for. When we set up the equipment to determine if the tiniest particles in our universe are physical matter or if they are energy waveforms, the answer is yes. This equipment proves this to be true. This equipment proves this to be true. That's an impossibility in terms of physics prior to the quanta being part of our conversation. Just when we invented the equipment to test such tiny things that would respond in real instantaneous time, were we able to even conclude that this is what's happening on a scientific level. Although, if you go back far enough in our deep ancient spiritual studies, they'll tell you the same thing, that the whole of creation is pouring through you, and your job is to remain identified as the funnel, the channel, the doorway, versus getting caught up in the material world and identifying as that which has already been proven, has already been created. So how does that apply to your life? If you're standing in the middle of an argument and you're realizing that you could win this argument with a little bit more evidence, or disproving this one other thing, or allowing, something else to unfold that would allow you to win the discussion. And in the middle of all that, you realize, it's actually just more important for me to love into this situation. I don't have to be right. I'd rather be in love. I'd rather be truly aligned with the possibility of what we could create together, rather than spend our time duking it out to see who's more right and who's more wrong. Because, what quantum science is also teaching us is there's only one of us here, that there's no one out there, that you're actually just parts of your own consciousness are arguing with each other in an attempt for you to integrate into your wholeness. For you to pull all of the components of you together in this way is exactly why you come. And so if we really want to get, picky about it and get into the science of it all, it's futile what we're doing in any time that we're trying to disprove or decide that someone else is unworthy, or decide that someone is wrong and that you are right. In the highest sense, there's a common ground. And what we're trying to do as a species is evolve to the place where we can hold that space for one another and encourage each other to awaken to that, versus engaging in some combative, arm wrestling match to decide who's more right and who has a better corner on the truth than another. And so, where do you fit in all of that? Do you constantly find yourself defending yourself? Or do you have an idea that there's a you that exists beyond this physical world of right and wrong, and that there's a version of you beyond black and white that is this misty substance that is available, that is present? Every time you love, you get closer to that reality. Every time you choose love over an argument, you get closer and closer to identifying as this energy that is awake, that is free. And that's the key. If you want to be free in your life and you don't want to walk around constantly upset with people or places or things, you have to identify as something different than someone relative to those people and places and things. You are more than what is relative to those people and places and things. And yet, if you don't get busy learning about that version of you, discovering it, and most importantly, animating it, living as that, then you'll always be stuck referencing the outer world for your happiness and your joy and your peace and your creativity and your opportunity in the world. So think about it. In what ways can even acknowledging something like this change your daily experiences? How often are you unconsciously comparing, competing, judging, condemning yourself or others? How often does it happen? Start to pay attention, because every single moment that you recognize that you're doing that, you're comparing, or you're competing in some way, every single time that you're judging and measuring yourself or someone else, you're out of the game. You're not even playing in the game that you came here to win. So there's no way you're going to win. You're not even in the right game. So how do we do that? Well, let's think about it. So these scientific concepts, these scientific truths are here to spark you and to tickle you and to animate, to inspire, to activate, to spark something in you. Because when we allow the new science to be embodied, we find that it actually aligns with ancient spiritual teachings to such a degree that we're no longer willing to allow the old science that tells us that disease comes to you through a bug that's going to get you and take you out of the game, or that you're going to get older, and as you do, things are going to fail. And everybody buys into that one because it's happening with everybody, right? And yet there are those that are able to be exposed to something at various times in their lives and not get it, not be, have a contagion affect their level of health. And there are those that are getting younger and more flexible and pliable and more forgiving and more available and more rejuvenated as each year passes. So what's happening with one that's not happening with the other? And my question to you is it happening for you? Which way is it going for you? You're getting younger, you're getting older, you're getting more flexible, you're getting more rigid. Are you happier, more joyful? Are you more at peace, or are you more agitated and irritated than ever right now? It's an important question to ask, because when we begin to understand these energetic concepts and how they work, and more importantly, we begin to embody them, what we start to recognize is that we're waking as the soulful self. And so there are things that we can do to enhance coming to know ourselves as this soulful presence. There are some mindful breathing techniques that we can do that will act as a bridge between the body and the spirit, that actually move us up and down this whole continuum in an ongoing basis. Every single time you take a belly breath intentionally, you're aligning with the soulful self instead of the personality, because the personality in its agitated moments is going to start breathing in the chest, and it's going to start clamping down, and you're going to feel a sitting down inside of your neck, and a covering and a hovering over your ability to manifest, and a cloaking of your heart that's shutting you down into your protective physiology. And that defensive physiology is never going to get you what you want, because if your body isn't open, the universe can't flow through it, period. So you are the universe compressing itself into form in a toric field flowing fashion. This donut, this giant donut that's just cycling and recycling. It's constantly being fed from this continuum, hitting the earth, and you're constantly rising and recycling. And you got to stay open to let you do your thing, the real you do its thing, until you can identify as that instead of something separate from it. You are the universe compressing itself into form, and you have to act like it. Okay, you got to start acting like you're made of everything. You have to start acting like there's nothing to be afraid of, because there's nothing that you're not. We have to start taking it on as, how do I open and how do I step into the intimacies of my relationships and lead with what I previously would have called courage, but just lead with truth. Truth doesn't have to be courageous. It just is. It is what it is. Just speak your truth with love and compassion, and watch what it does in your life. And if you're afraid that it's going to cause a problem in a relationship or a situation, you start with that. I'm afraid this is going to lead to an issue in this relationship, or that this might not go very well, or that I don't know how to do this very well, but I really need to say this thing. Just open with the truth. Be transparent. As the universe cannot resist your transparency, because it's you. So when you stop creating a veil between you and what's true, you start being what's true. And that's the biggest team you could possibly ever want to play on, right? So if you are the whole universe, then nothing is your enemy. There isn't anything other than an opportunity for you to expand your consciousness. So breathe in your belly, and breathe your heart open, and breathe your solar plexus open, the place between your navel and your heart. Make sure that whole area of your body is opening up, because breath in the body is spirit in the body. When you stop breathing, you can exit the body, no problemo, right? That's how it happens. But what happens is, when we start breathing consciously, we start to breathe more life into the body. We start to breathe more life into our life. And so we can use the breath to activate different circuits inside of our system. And it helps It helps us to begin to sense and feel and perceive and awaken as the soulful self. Take conscious breaths and breathe through the central channel. And there are so many ways to breathe a breath that will turn on different aspects of your consciousness. So explore them, come to know them. So here's the question. What shifts can you make today to align your energy with your highest purpose, which is awakening to the soulful self? What shifts could we make with our attention in the body? How could I open the body and allow something to gloriously pour through? When I look back in my life, I've had multidimensional transcendent experiences on a regular basis for the past 25 years and 24 years. And so in that, I will tell you that the things that have been most transformative for me here in this body, in this life, are when I bring that energy here, when I embody it, not when I go there, but when I bring that here, when I allow myself to live in this body freely and fully and wholly, when I breathe more openly and I relax inside the body on a regular basis, the continuum of energy, of essence that we are pours through. And it was under those circumstances that I would then have the wherewithal to stay and lean in on a conversation that previously I would have deflected and left because it was just too much, too big, too overwhelming. And what happens is we can't nurture relationships that way. We can't find our abundance that way by sidestepping all these opportunities to grow and evolve. And so think about it. In what ways could I shift my attention and my breathing today and begin to awaken to this soulful self? And so, I understand that there is so much skepticism and fear of change, and so much, we have been so, led into thinking in ways that we're not okay and that we're not safe and that it isn't going to work out for us and that we don't have what it takes to be directly connected to source, or we don't have what it takes to make good, strong decisions. And we are constantly being encouraged to belittle ourselves and minimize our true power. And we are being asked to give that power over in so many ways that is only going to lead to an upheaval and an uprise, because the universe will not be contained in such a way. It will not let it happen. And so the best thing that you can possibly do is to trust what's happening inside of you, and do so by opening your system and let the universe pour through what comes out of you with one singular focus, that you will do it in love and compassion, will always be beneficial to the circumstance that you are in. And it will always disentangle the illusion that we've been operating in. So let's do that together, because together we are more. So to all our listeners, we're so thankful that you are here and for joining us on this journey. There's so much appreciation, because again, the collective is so much more powerful than we are as an individual trying to put these pieces together. So until next time, we'll see you. Bye-bye for now.